Hi everyone, welcome to TGIF, another Friday, another episode. Regulations as the topic is omnipresent and more spoken in the current times, and thanks to how AI is evolving. In fact, if you look at a global law, I would probably look at GDPR as one law passed in European Union, which is a benchmark for many countries to embrace as we go along. Early this month, India passed Digital Personal Data Protection Bill 2023, and to talk more about this, I'm joined by Arvind Raman for a short conversation. So Arvind, welcome to TGIF.
Hi Sandeep, absolute pleasure to be on TGIF.
Wonderful. Thanks again. You've been very proactive in recommending topics, and you spent good time after the bill was announced to read about it. So first question to you is, tell us what this bill is all about.
Surely Sandeep. So this bill primarily aims to provide a comprehensive framework for processing of personal data.
Right.
And some of the key tenets include how would organizations lawfully process the data and also ensure that there is an explicit approval from the user.
Got it.
So there are two key terms which are involved in this whole thing.
Right.
One is the data fiduciary or the collector of the data, and the law makes it mandatory for the data collector to ensure that the data is connected on a lawful purpose and is stored and monitored and secured as per the regulations.
Perfect.
Similarly, from a data principal or I would say an individual perspective,
Right.
it empowers him to understand how his data is being stored, how is it being processed, and also offers remedies in case of any misuse of this data.
Wonderful. That means as an individual citizen of this country, I can ask an entity, whoever is processing my data, in terms of how are they using it, where is it stored, such questions.
Absolutely, and there is also a data protection board set up by the government of India, wherein an individual can go in and seek remedies, including financial penalties in case any of the regulations are not met in.
Wonderful. Awesome. So let's move on. I think one of the most discussed question in the world of tech when it comes to building solutions is data residency and data movement cross-border. So considering the fact that a lot of times we consume services which probably hosted somewhere else, or even when it comes to invoking, let's say, a service which is in a different country that's where it's hosted. So what's the reflection on that? That means I'm talking about cross-border data movement. So any reflection on that from data bill perspective?
Surely, Sandeep. So if you just look back earlier, the regulations in India were that cross-border data flow was permitted only for countries that were whitelisted.
Got it.
In this case, the rule has been changed, wherein you can move your data to any country as long as it's not blacklisted by the government of India. Wonderful. So that's a significant change. The second thing you mentioned about data processing.
Right.
We've seen in many cases organizations collect the data in India and process it externally.
Right.
Now the law explicitly states that as long as the goods or service is provided within the jurisdiction of India, then even if the data gets processed externally, the laws will be applicable in that particular country.
Wonderful. That brings us to the topic of apps, right? All of us have a ton of apps in our mobile phones. Let's take a game, right? Imagine a global game provider. That provider is offering service by hosting that game somewhere else on the planet. All of us are using that game here. So what's implication?
Well, since the game is hosted on a data center possibly outside India, I don't think there is any kind of obligations or any kind of regulations that would imply on this particular gaming company. The rule says that the service has to be explicitly provided within the jurisdiction of the Indian geography.
Wonderful. That means imagine, let's take Ola. Most of us have in the phones. Now Ola is an Indian company registered here, and they're providing services for Indian customers or Indian citizens. Hence, this law applies to them as an entity.
Absolutely, Sandeep. In fact, one of the key things that we hear from the market, from the industry, is that how would organizations manage this new data subject rights? As we spoke earlier, today an individual has the right to ask a service data fiduciary data information about its data. So we see organizations having to change their processes as well as build platforms by which they can address these user queries at a population scale.
Wonderful. Arvind, great. So let's talk about when it comes to storing information of, let's say, youth or minors in the country. I think there was some talk about how should treat that differently. So any reflection on that?
Absolutely, Sandeep. So the rule clearly provides that for anyone less than 18 years old, you need a consent from the adult to kind of store the data.
Okay.
So if you look at it today, a huge set of edtech companies as well as gaming companies have children as a part of their user profile.
Right.
So those organizations essentially need to understand how would they collect and process this particular data and also ensure that they are within the line of compliance. So that is a key change that has come in.
Awesome. I think this is huge actually, right? Because if you look at EdTech, there's a large population of users giving information as they register, as they start using services. So it applies to all of them in that case, in terms of fiduciaries.
True.
Wonderful. Now, Arvind, quickly, initially you mentioned, there also comes a penalty of any violation. Just talk us through that.
Sure. So there are stringent punitive penalties in case of any of these violations, and the penalties run as much as up to 250 crores. Essentially, from a data fiduciary perspective, if he is unable to securely store the data, or if there is a breach of data, or if there is a usage of data beyond the necessary purposes. Also, it is mandatory on the data fiduciary to inform the data protection board and also the user that there is a breach of data. In case of non-conformance with this particular law, again there are significant penalties on this case.
Awesome. Arvind, thank you so much. I think very meaningful, but we also need to come back and talk about how our tools and technologies from Microsoft can help customers complement or manage their data considering this bill. So we should do that next week for sure.
Absolutely, Sandeep.
So I think I'm sure you will be busy at work to understand how you map these tools to add value to customers, right?
Very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much once again. And for all viewers, we'll leave a resource in this post to give you a short gist of what PDP bill is all about, and that should give you a sense of how India is progressing on this trail to bring privacy and regulatory laws, make it real for the foreseeable future. With that, thanks for watching us today. Keep watching TGIF. A wonderful Friday, a great weekend ahead. Bye-bye.